Okay, so hello everyone. I hope everyone is here and everyone is doing great. So today we'll be learning about the fourth unit from the Android Basics with Compose course. I hope everyone is ready for this session. So let's get started now. So presenting and welcome again to this Compose Camp session 4. We're excited to have you here starting your journey as becoming an Android developer. And this program again is brought to you by the GDSC Club in collaboration with together 5 more clubs, including colleges like AISSMS IT, Trinity COE, and NBN Srinagar. So thank you for all our collaborators. Now let's get started towards the session. So before we start, let me introduce myself. So I am Siddesh Kukade. I am a third year IT student and also an application expert at GDSC Club PVG COET. So that's about me. If you want to learn more about me, you can just type on g.dev/Siddesh Kukade. So let's try doing that. So you can see my profile, my badges, and you can get to learn more about me, and you can get my links also here. So yeah, I think that was about it. So we'll get started. Okay, so sorry for the interruptions. Now we'll get finally started. So let's get started with today's session. So yeah, again, Compose Camp. Okay, so prerequisites. These are not important or mandatory or something like that, but I wish you to have completed with these things. I wish you to have completed with our Unit 1, Unit 2 and Unit 3 of our Compose Camp sessions, so that you'll understand these things in a better way. Okay, so that was about that. Moving up next, what do we have today in this session? So today we are going to learning about the app architecture and how to use the components like view models, handling the UI state and state flow to build a more complex app, to organize the code, to test the code, and to maintain among multiple developers. So in this particular point, you will be learning about all of the developer related things and all of the things that you're going to be needing to make your developer life more efficient. Okay, after that we'll be learning about navigation in Jetpack. So we'll learn about how we can use navigation to build more complex apps with more screens, and how to navigate and pass data between those screens with different composable components in this one. And then finally guys, we're going to be focusing on adapting for different screen sizes. So in this one, what you will be learning is you'll learn how to adapt your app according to the screen sizes, provide a better user experience, and as well as how we can test our user interface whether it is being adapted or not. And again, so again, one more point here. So there is a difference between adaptive and responsive. Okay, so we'll also be covering that one in the session as well. So with that said, let's finally move on. So yeah, again, this one is being taken from the Android Basics with Compose course provided by developer.google.com website. So you can refer to that as well if you need for the reference, or if any changes happen in the future, you can refer to them here as well. Okay, so I think that was about it. And you can also do the Google search about Android Basics with Compose and you'll find this course. Again guys, if you have any doubt, anything, if you feel it is too simple or too difficult, just feel free to ask them. Just feel free to ask your doubts in the comment section. I'm always active in the comments, so I'll be replying as soon as they come on the comment section. Again guys, if you have any doubts, make sure to drop them. Just don't shy. Okay, finally guys, we're going to get started with our first point, which was app architecture. So before starting with the architecture, let's see why do we need one, or let's see why do we need the component lifecycle, which we'll be covering here. So let's talk about some of the current problems that we are facing with our app that we've created throughout this series. Okay, So now I hope you've created something app following the previous series. So let's see. So some problems occurs like device configuration do change. Sometimes your app is not installed on only a specific type of devices. A device can be very old, it can be very new, it can have a foldable screen, or it can have a bigger screen, or it may not be able to have like a large screen to fit your entire user interface in that. So that problems can happen in the devices. Sometimes some devices don't have like things like some devices like speaker problems and anything like that. So we also need to handle such things as well. The second point is mobile devices are resource constrained. So see, if your application is taking too much space or too much memory while it is running, it is not good for that mobile devices to run that application for a longer time. So for example, if you minimize your application and if and user opens it again, if your application is taking too much resources, what your operating system of the phone will do is it will just close that app and reopen it again. So what that does is that creates a bad user experience, as the state of the application is not maintained. So it creates problems and it's not better for the user experience here. Then we have app should be able to start from the point that it has been closed. So again, the same point that we were talking about, whenever we minimize the app, it should come back to that point that we've left it. Okay, so that is important for improving the user experience, and that is the current problem that we are facing here. Okay, so we also see how we can make our app more resource efficient and everything. So okay, with that said guys, let me know if you have any doubts on the comments. Okay, no problem, no problem in that one. So let us move forward. Okay, so before I tell you the life cycle, I just want to make sure everything is know what is going on. So again, Kotlin guys, let's see how the program is being started in Kotlin as well as in Android app using the Compose definitely. So as we all know, in the Kotlin app, the main function starts as works as a starting point of the program, and then the entire program is executed by following with the main functions. Okay, so the code of the main function is executed very first in the program. So that was about the Kotlin. And in the Android app, as we all know, the main activity acts like a main function in the Android. You have to override you have to override this onCreate method, which will be used to create the user interface on your mobile phone. Okay, so I hope you have got how the start of the execution happens in both Kotlin and in Android. Okay, again, if you have doubts, make sure to drop them on the comments. Let's move on. So here we have activity lifecycle. So activity lifecycle here. So before learning about the lifecycle, let's talk about what is activity here. So activity can be anything. It can be a button or an entire screen, or a search bar, or a text component. It can be any component. Okay, a component or a group of component is called as activity here. Okay, I hope you understood that. Now let us see how the why and how the life cycle works basically. So before we start with this complex one, let's start with a simple one. So I hope everyone knows how a butterfly grows from it becoming a caterpillar, then it goes in this process and then it becomes a butterfly. So first of all, it's the butterfly's birth stage. Then the butterfly slowly grows and it eats food and it gets in the sunlight, gets water and everything. So proper resources are provided to it. Then it becomes a caterpillar. And when it becomes a caterpillar and it becomes mature enough, then what it does is it climbs on a tree or a branch and it sticks on itself, and it goes in the process of I think it's called as hibernation. But what it does is it converts itself into a beautiful butterfly, and after everything it just goes in peace. Okay, so I hope you understood this butterfly life cycle, and I hope you are already familiar with that. So just like that guys, we also have a life cycle in components of our application. Okay, the components are just like first they are initialized, then they are created, and then they are started, and then they might get resumed and might get again started, and after all these phases they might go back in these stages and get destroyed. So just like the caterpillar, our component also goes in all of these stages that we discussed here. Okay. So yeah, so let's take an example here. Okay, so this is how the life cycle activity life cycle is working. So let's start here. Let's say a button has to be created and it has to be shown on your application. So what is the first process of it? First of all, it will be created by the compiler. Okay, it will be created and it will go first in the initialize state. Okay, it will be initialized and then it will use the onCreate method to create itself on the application. So then it will go, you have to use onCreate method to create that. Okay, yeah. So I think you can remember this method from right here. This is the onCreate method that we were talking about, and this works for converting a component in the starting state of the activity lifecycle. So this is how the onCreate works. And once your application is in a created state, that means it is created, but it is not rendered or not shown in your Android application. It might be hidden or it is just not rendered. Okay, so to render it on the screen, you have to use methods like onStart or onRestart. So there's a star on the onRestart because when you are restarting the application and only then this method is executed. But when you are starting when the component is getting rendered on the screen for the very first time, then and only this onStart method will run. Okay, so the application then goes on the started state. So again, what is the meaning of started state? So started state just means that the button that you were talking about will be rendered on the screen of the applications. Okay, it might be shown to the user or it might not be shown to user, or it may not be clicked by the user. So let's say when the user clicks on that button, which means the activity has the focus. Okay, which means the user is focusing on that button, which means the user is clicking on that button basically. So then it goes from the started state to this resumed state. That means the application is resumed, the widget is resumed and it is being used by the user. So when it loses focus, or let's say when the user clicks anywhere on the screen besides from that button, then it goes back again in the started state. So how does this happen? So yeah, these things happen, and to run for that things, the onResume and onPause methods are used. Okay, so again and after that, when it is started, and if let's say the application doesn't needs it, so it will then stop this component and it will become it will go in the created state again, and we can either choose to destroy that component and it will be destroyed and it will be gone from that application. Okay, so this is how it works. Make sure, let's do a recap here. So first of all, the button is initialized by the program and then it is created, and the onCreate method is used while it is being created. We'll talk about why we are using this method in a bit. So after it is created, it then goes in the started state where it is rendered on the screen. Okay, you can see this activity is visible thing here, so means it is rendered on the mobile screen. So after that, it is resumed. Okay, resumed means it is being used by the user. It has the focus from the user. The button is clicked, that means the user has focused on the button. Okay, and after the work is done, user clicks away, then it goes back in the started state, and when the operation of the button is completed, then it goes back in the created state, and then finally it goes back in the destroyed state. Okay, so this is how it comes alive and it just gets destroyed finally. So again, you'll ask, so why do we have these methods lying around in each of these stages? So let's say, suppose to make your application more efficient, or if you want to implement something complex here, like freeing the resources or locking the resources taken from an API or a, what you can call that, I'll say a two-way connection. So you can execute that code on these methods. Let's say I want to execute a specific code whenever the application is resumed. So what I'll do is I'll use this method, I'll write my code, and then the code will definitely execute it whenever the application is resumed. Let's say I want to free some of the system resources whenever the activity is destroyed. So what I'll do is I'll write some code using this onDestroy method, and the code will be executed just like I want it to. So again, just a quick note here, if you want to use these methods, make sure to override them from the component activity. Okay, you just cannot say function on create and it will not work. Okay, you have to use this component activity, inherit from that, and use the override keyword. Okay, I hope you got that one. So I hope you clear with this diagram, guys. It was very important. I hope you are clear with everything. If you again have any doubts, feel free to ask them in the comments. I'm very free and very ready to answer your doubts. Okay, no problem. So okay, now we're moving ahead to using loggers. So loggers are basically a logging to the application, which means you use console log in your browser, just like that logger works. So logging means logging a variable or something, it's just like printing the output of your application. Okay, so we'll see how we can log out values to the application using the tags that are provided in the Compose. Okay, so to view this one, what we have to do is we have to take this URL. So let me just give a second. Yeah, so we'll take this URL and go on your browser and insert this URL. Okay, the page will be appeared. Okay, there we have the page. You can see there is more information on the life cycle and all. So yeah, we were talking about that tag. Okay, so so if you want to log anything ever in your program, okay, what is logging again? I'll tell you. So this is the console of my browser. Okay, so just like that, there can be your program application as well. So if you want to log something like a variable or something, I can use it with console log. If you're guys familiar with this one, you'll understand this one is very easily. So we are just logging the values using this log class. Okay, so what we are doing here is, first of all, before explaining it, let's see. So first, to log the values on the console, what you need to do here is we have to create a const value, which is a constant variable named as tag. Okay, so the tag should have what tag do you want. So we'll discuss more about what is this tag is about in a bit. Then what you need to do is you need to use this log class. You need to import this class. It will be auto imported by your editor, no problem on that. You have to do dot d on that. So which is d is a method to do the logging. You have to do you have to add the brackets and add this tag variable, and after that you can use string to print your data. Okay, and again, if you want to import this log, you can import using import android.util.log, or if you can just control spacebar on that, and it will be auto imported by your editor. So after doing that, what you need to do is you have to run your program, and you have to go on the logcat option of the program, and after going on that option, you will see the tag that is being used here. Okay, so the tag will help you to to categorize your logs. Okay, so you can see on create called is right here and the tag is right here. So you can see, let me show you, we had the tag which was named as main activity, which is right here, and we can see the log as well that we have using before. So just like that. Okay, so that was about the tag and the main activity, the tag and logging in the Compose. So I hope you got that one. If you have any doubts, again drop them in the comments below. Let's continue here and let's see the configuration changes. What happens when device configuration changes and how we can handle that things. Okay, so configuration changes means the properties of devices are being changed here. So what do you mean by the properties of devices are being changed, like how it can be changed? So it can change when the device is rotated horizontally or vertically. Then the width and height of the devices change, and when it changes, guys, what happens is it as we learned previously in the life cycle, so whenever your device is rotated, it calls the on destroyed method. So all of your components are destroyed and they are rendered again on the screen. Okay, so there is a re-rendering that is happening, that is so far that you cannot feel it, but it is there. Okay, so keep in mind about that. So what it happens is, if you are so what the problem with this is, the problem is as data loss. So what do you mean by data loss? How it can be data loss when just rotating the device? As we talked again, whenever we rotate this phone in a horizontal direction, so it will call the on destroy methods on everything. Okay, on every activities. You can see the desert photo here. this nav bar or this header or this value, everything will be destroyed and re-rendered again on the screen. So let's say this is a $55 value, this will also be gone and become 0. So how we can persist this value, or how we can store this value? You can use it using a remember savable method to save the values. So how you can use it? Again, you have to use variable revenue, and you have to say, using by keyword, you have to say by remember and create a state out of it. So if you have used React or something like that, it is similar to using use state hook in React. Okay, we are just maintaining the state of the application, and we are also specifying it is mutable state of 0. So this is, we are specifying that this state can be mutated and it is contained the initialized value as 0. And again we are printing this image ID, which is right here, and you can see we are updating it. So this is an updater function as well. So you can update the value by providing it in the brackets. Okay, so just like the use state hook in React, this is how it's working. Finally guys, after all of that, we are finally moving towards the app architecture. So what do you mean by app architecture? So app architecture means a way of architecting the app. You know, we architect buildings, or we create like cars or something. We need to architect them first. Okay, so the quality of the building or the car is dependent upon how it is architected. Okay, so that is very important. So just like that, okay, quality of application depends on how well it is architected. And what do we mean by how well it is architected? So as you can see, a well architectured app is an app which is easier to test, make robust, expand, and team develop. So what does this mean? So a well architectured app is an app that is easier to test. So the app should be testable. There should be tests for everything, and making sure that the app are complying and passing all of the test cases. Okay, so that is a property of a well architectured app. Then it is robust. The code should not be easily exploitable. It should be strong enough to hold for even if it is in a in a cyber attack or something, DDoS attack or something like that. So it should be able to handle that. Or if the device's performance is too low, if you're using something like a legacy phone, so it should work on that situations as well. Or if devices is running on constraints and there are multiple applications open, so our application should try its best to maintain the state and to run in a good condition. Okay, that is important. There can be network problems or storage problems or device internal errors. So our application should be robust enough to handle such problems. So that is the basic meaning of robustness. Then finally, expand. So what do we mean by expand here? Let me just check if I'm still recording. Yeah. So what do we mean by expand here? You know, devices size changes, and not everyone is having the same device with them. So different people have different devices and same applications are installed in them. So the problem here is that sometimes the devices can be too big or too small to maintain the UI, and sometimes it is not suitable to use the same user interface in every single size of the devices. So let's say if you are using a foldable device, or if you are using a tablet, so that UI should be different from the base UI that was being used on a simple mobile application which was having a rectangular screen. So I hope you got the meaning of expand here. Then finally, team develop. So your app should be the code of the app should be understandable, it should be easier enough, and it should be well documented and commented so that it can be better used by the teams. Okay, so that everyone in the team can understand the code. It should be organized as well, the components and the styles and the test files, and the CI/CD checks, the environmental set of files. Everything should be organized, it should be documented, and it should be clean. Okay, by mean of clean, it should be easier for everyone to understand what is going on. And for new developers that are coming in your team, it should be easier for them to cope up with your development of this app. So I hope you got that points. If you have any doubts, drop them on the comments below. So finally, need for separation of concern. So what is separation of concern? Okay, again guys, when you are developing an application seriously, there are a lot of problems. There are a lot of things that we need to be concerned about. There are problems with user interfaces, there are problems with data handling, there are problems with networking, logic, user interface again, and things like that, security again. we need to handle with a lot of things. So to handle them in your app, there should be a well way to handle the codes. Okay, there should be a well way to handle the user interface, and there should be a well structured manner to handle the user interface and the logic of the app. So do we have any solutions for that? If you guys can think of about any solutions, be sure to drop them on the comments below, or you just can comment like, I don't know, I am still thinking, or something like that, to keep it a more interactive. Now finally, separation of concern. So again, solution of everything is this separation of concern. So what do we have in the separation of concern? These were all the concerns, and let's see how we can separate them. Okay, let's move on. So this is the separation of concern, which basically tells what we'll talk about this later. So the separation of concern basically tells what it tells that we have to break down, we have to use the work breakdown structure. So how we can use this structure? So let's say this is our project. What we need to do is we need to divide the task while developing it. Okay, so let's say my project is about creating a Facebook clone or something like that. I need to divide the task. Okay, first of all, I'll create the login page, then I'll create the sign up page, then I'll create the dashboard. Again, for these tasks I need to divide them more in the subtasks. So let's say for the login page I need to create a login UI, and just like that we need to put them on the subtask, and then finally putting these subtasks in a work stages. So for creating this user interface I need to write HTML files, CSS files, something like that. So I'm just giving again an example here. Okay, I hope you understand this. So encapsulation helps to enforce modularity again. So this architecture provides encapsulation. Meaning of encapsulation is that this code or this logic is separated from other code. Okay, so that the concerns are separated, so that each let's say if you assign this work to 3 developers, they can work on each features, so they don't have to worry about what other people is doing with their code. So it won't create problems like ambiguity or something like that. Okay, so it is basically known as breaking the structure, breaking our project in the subtask is basically known as modularity. So modularity helps in testing, making the code robust. Again, what we've talked about, what is robust previously in brief, helping to expand the application, and yeah, definitely this one is very helpful. Making the team, making sure that the team is developing the application in a smooth and efficient manner. Because at the end of the day, guys, when you are creating an application, the developer time is the thing that costs you the most. So let's see how the separation of concern is being implemented in the Compose framework. So just like that, we have the unidirectional data flow. We break our application in 2 layers. The first one is data layer, and the second one is user interface layer. So what we are doing here is the data layer is responsible for fetching the data, managing the data, and everything that is data related, like storing it in a mobile database or something like that. So all of that is handled by this data layer. And the UI layer is basically responsible for showing the user interface correctly and in a consistent and efficient manner. Okay, so basically what happens is a UI layer is the user interface. It sends event whenever a user clicks on a button, or it adds values in inputs or something like that. It sends those events. The data layer records those events, and it stores the things that are happening. Let's say I've clicked on a button, it will send that Siddesh has clicked on a button. So it will store that, and it will provide the accordingly the process the data, and it will provide the according output to the UI layer again to show it on the screen. Okay, so that was about that. Let's see it in example. Let's say there is a contact app, and we are using the user interface to list of displaying our contacts in our mobile phone, and the data layer is being used for storing the contact data and managing it. So let's say we click on a list, it will send the event to this data layer, and the data layers will send proper data back again to this UI layer. I hope you got that. Let's move on to the testing. So let us see how we can test our Android app. Let's see how we can set up our test using the JUnit framework. So in this one we are going to learn about how you're going to test your application with JUnit framework. So JUnit is a framework mainly used for testing, created and developed in Java language. It is also compatible with for being used in Kotlin. So to use the framework, you just need to do a simple change in your build.gradle file of your existing project. So you need to add this line here, which is android.lifecycle lifecycle dash view model compose 2.5.0. Okay, so that's how you can set up your test for your application for being using for testing. So if you there is another way to do it as well. You need to, in the same Gradle file, you need to find for dependencies, and you need to add test implementation JUnit 4.13.2. This line of code that you need to add here. Okay, so why we're doing why I'm showing these two ways to do it. So the reason behind is this. Okay, so using this, what will happen is when you are building your application and delivering it to the user, your code for the testing will also get built up for that, which is very unnecessary and not required to do it. So by using this test implementation here, your code will only be used for when it is in the development phase and where application is packaged up and ready to be deployed on App Store or Play Store. Then this test code will be removed from your application, making it more reducing its size and making it more performance efficient. So there's an example of testing. So to test anything, what you need to do is you can create a class, you can test in the same class. You need to add this @test keyword here. So and you need to then we can easily add our function name. That is a very long function name right here. So this entire thing is a function name, and you can test anything by checking its values. Okay, more on that on the course, guys. So yeah, we'll here in this one we'll taking the overview of how things are working. Again, if you're facing any doubts here, making sure that something is not being explained correctly, so feel free to drop it in the comments. Finally, so this was the basic overview of how we can run the test. Let's see how we can execute the tests. So what you need to do is, when you are in a test file, when you written your code, so you need to right click on that. You need to find it on the path of the Android Studio. You need to right click on that file. You will get this menu, and in this menu you need to find run game you need to find the option which is a run game model with coverage. Okay, so what this does is it runs your code and it tests it, and it provides the code coverage for it as well. So again, what is code coverage? Whenever we are testing your application, the coverage is that how many lines of code have you covered in your tests. So let's say I have like 1000 line of code, and if I have written test for like 300 line of code, then the test coverage will become 30%, and the line of code that is covered will become like 300. Okay, so that is what a line of code and coverage is. After clicking on that, you'll get whether the tests are failed or whether they're successful. Okay, so you'll get those messages. Let's move on to the navigation. So yeah, we're moving a bit fast here due to our time constraints, so we'll make sure everything is being covered here. So in this one, so in this session we are not focusing more on the code, we are just focusing on building the logic, because this session is a bit complex and it may take too much time for me to explain you the things that you can learn at your own pace after the session while referring to this course by Google. Okay, so you just need to you just need to here to clear your basics, to clear your theory language about this, and the practical you can perform later on. So what is navigation? I'll show it with an example. So yeah, so as you can see, there can be single screen apps that you can create, or there can be one single app that is having multiple screens that you can operate by clicking on buttons. So as you can see how it is being changed here. So when you are creating apps that are these type of complex applications, so what you need to do is you need to add some special components to make such apps. So what will be these components and how we can make them is what we are going to talk about them right now. So let's see this. I'll stop the video. Yeah, so okay, so navigating components with Compose. To navigate the components with Compose, we need 4 things. We need to understand 4 things before we can use the navigation components. So we need to understand what is the destination, what is meaning of nav host, what is routes, or what are routes, and what is a nav controller, and how we can utilize them. Okay, so destination, let's talk about destination. So the destination is, destination is the word is actually a bit self-contradictory here. So destination is actually the starting point here, not the ending point of your application. So if you are using multiple screen, first of all you need to set up your destination, which means the initial point of where you are going to start your navigation. So let's say our app has these 3 screens which are A, B and C. So I need to set the destination as A to to set it as a first screen, and then we can navigate to these more screens as we in the further, using the further components that we will going to be will be looking at. So navigation, so navigation, routes and nav controller. So what are routes? Routes are basically the ways, okay? As you can see, the arrows are going in. So these are routes, like how we are routing it, like how it should go from this screen to that screen. Does it come between any more screens while going on that path? So that we are focusing using this route. So routes are basically the roads or the pathways for traversing the screens, okay? And nav controller is a class, or you can call it as an object. It's a class that is being used to execute these paths, okay? So to go from one path to another path, we have the nav controller dot navigate button, navigate function, sorry. So you can use them. And yeah, so again, what is backstack? Okay, so when you are going from one screen to another to one more, what actually happens here is the application store when you're pressing the back button, like how the application you will taken back to, let's say I clicked I initially got on the screen A, then I moved to screen B, and then I moved to screen C. So what happened here is that in a backstack, this backstack is actually a stack data structure. I hope everyone is familiar with what is a stack data structure. If you have any doubts about stack, you can drop them on the comments, okay? So whenever moving from this screen to this, the state will be recorded here in the stack. So let's say I move from A to B, then the A will go in the stack and keeping a record that A has been inserted here, and then from B to C, if the B will go in the stack, it's calling that B has been inserted, and finally the C also will go in the stack, in the top of the stack, and the element that is in the top of the stack means that it is currently active. So when I press back button, this element will be deleted and will go to the previous element, which is B. So we have found B, so we'll render the B as the user presses the back button. If user presses the back button again, it will go to the A, and if user presses back button here again, it will close the application, okay? This is how the backstack works. Finally, there's an example here which is using nav controller.navigate. So you can see there's a cupcake example here. After clicking on these buttons to choose a flavor or something, you get redirected to the separate screen for that, and you can set our flavors here, and then after clicking on the next button, you will get to another screen which is set to choose a pickup date, and after clicking next again, you finally go to the order summary and you can send order, okay? So this is how the example is. Now finally, so that was about the navigation, guys. I hope your concept is clear with navigation. If you have any doubts again, please make sure to drop them in the comments, okay? Fine. So finally moving on to the last point, which is adapting for different screen sizes. So again, guys, making an application production ready means that it needs to be able to stand out, and it needs to be able to adapt to screen sizes, okay? So what is meaning of adapting to screen sizes? So adapting means, let's say if your application is showing a specific UI on one screen, then it should, for the second screen it should show a different UI, okay? It should adapt to its size, it should change its UI elements accordingly to enhance the user experience in the end, okay? So in the end here we are focusing on improving the user experience, and that is only the thing that is mattering, okay? So what is adaptive layouts? I hope you got this thing. So it adapts according to the screen size, and let's see what is a responsive versus adaptive. So responsive versus adaptive here, meaning of responsive is that you can see this is an example of responsive. So here the elements are same, but the size is being changed here, okay? Just the small elements is being shown small on the smaller screen, and it becomes big on the bigger screen. But what is meaning of adaptive? So the adaptive means that the UI is changed accordingly to improve the user experience, okay? So that is the meaning of adaptive. If you have any doubts, make sure to drop them in the comments. More examples. Let me just give a second here. Okay, so let's take an example of use cases of adaptation. So you can see when the app is changed from portrait mode to landscape, it should change its entire UI accordingly. So that is an example of adaptation. The layout adapting, as I was talking here, you know, the screen size is changed, the layout is entirely changed. Previously the layout was like in a column, now it is in a row, okay? Okay, so there is again a concept called as canonical layouts, in which this is a style of making adaptive layouts. So what you have to do in this one is like when the layouts are this is a type of adaptation. Okay, so again as we talked, so let's say this is a tablet and this is an application. So how it will convert from being this to this, so it will change its UI from in a list. So suppose this is a contact list, so how it will do is if it goes on a tablet, it will show the contacts here, and after clicking on the contact it will show the details right here. Okay, so that was about the canonical layouts. Moving on to the breakpoints. So what is meaning of breakpoints and what are the breakpoints in your Android application? So breakpoint basically means the size and the height and the width of your application. Okay, so there are basically three words that are used for different sizes of the devices. So there's first is compact devices. Compact devices means basically your devices which are mobile phones which are less than like 6 inches of screen size. Then there comes like medium devices which are foldable devices, or they can be tablet devices. And then finally comes like expanded devices which are more like a monitor screen or something, that are very big enough like a laptop screen. Okay, so that was about the breakpoints. Yeah, talk is cheap. Show me the code. Let's take a look at the code real fast. So adding adaptability in your application. To add adaptability, you need to add this line in your build Gradle file. Again, you need to add implementation for Material 3 UI, and then getting the screen size for the UI, you can do it with using the calculate window size class activity. Okay, yeah, that is how you'll do it. And finally rendering the different components according to screen size. The question will come into your mind, to make my application adaptive, how am I going to render different components based on the screen size? So first of all, you will calculate the screen size, and you'll use some logic here, or you can get the direct classes that we've talked about, that are compact, medium and expanded. And by using these classes, this is a condition here, like if the window is compact, then show this compact layout. If the window is medium, then show this medium layout. And if the window is expanded, then finally show this expanded layout. Okay, so that's how it works. Okay, I think that was a bit fast, but no problem. I hope you got everything, guys. If you have any doubts, I'm still in the comments for next 5 minutes. I hope you got the video, and thank you so much for joining this session. Okay, thank you so much.